Trump administration took a shot at Amazon this morning, slamming the online retailer after reporting Punchbowl News alleged that it will soon display the additional cost of President Trump's tariffs on each product. Here's Karoline Leavitt this morning.
This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. Why didn't Amazon do this when the Biden administration hiked inflation to the highest level in 40 years? And I would also add that it's not a surprise because, as Reuters recently wrote, Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm. So this is another reason why Americans should buy American. It's another reason why we are onshoring critical supply chains here at home to shore up our own critical supply chain and boost our own manufacturing here.
Amazon responded to the administration in a statement saying, quote, "The team that runs our ultra-low-cost Amazon Haul store has considered listing import charges on certain products. This was never a consideration for the main Amazon site, and nothing has been implemented on any Amazon properties." Amazon wouldn't be the first company to introduce tariff pricing. Major online Chinese retailers like Temu and Shein have added fees in response to President Trump's tariffs. What do you make of it all, Robbie?
Look, I think if you're in the position of being the government and saying, no, they shouldn't, we don't want them to talk about how our policies are making it more expensive for them to do business, you're losing. And frankly, that's the kind of policy I associate with like the Elizabeth Warrens of the world, whom I don't like very much. If it's true that Amazon did not publicize the harms of Democratic administration policies, then that's a fair enough point. I'm not sure they were exactly quiet about those things in the past, but everybody at every level rightly complains, in my libertarian view, when the government is raising the cost of them doing business. D.C., they passed a law that changed the paying of restaurant workers, people who work for tips, changing it in some aspect that ended up causing restaurants to have to raise cost on food. And I know restaurants in this city that put on their little menu, the reason the bill is 20% higher is because of this law that has caused. So, so what I'm saying is it is nothing new or unusual for a business to say, prices are changing, here's exactly why. Now, Amazon is saying they're actually not doing that on the main site. This was a little bit of a misreporting, but they have every right to say that we think this policy is bad because it's going to raise prices for us. And the Trump people can turn around and say, nope, that's what we're doing because we think Amazon is complicit with China or whatever. They can say that, that's fine. They can say we're going to do this policy anyway because we think it's good and important for national security. But I think it's just ridiculous. It's ludicrous to criticize Amazon for complaining about it. What, they have to stomach this tariff policy that crashed the economy, that every business hates, that all the business leaders who got behind Trump don't even want to see. They have to deal with it and shut up about it. That's just not a winning argument.
I agree with that, and I think that Karoline Leavitt's response there and the sort of edginess or the anger of it is telling in and of itself, because to me what that says is that there is a sensitivity in the White House about exactly what Amazon had been reported to be doing, which is drawing a direct line between the Trump policy of imposing tariffs and the possibility of and the probability of those increasing costs for American consumers. Now, whether Amazon is going to do it on a kind of marginal side site or the main site or whatever, the point is that Trump and Leavitt don't want that line that very obviously exists to be drawn. And Trump has always been sensitive about trying to claim credit for either economic good times or of things that are just likely to be popular. I mean, famously during the first term, there was the appending of his signature to the stimulus checks that went out, wanting it to appear almost like the money was directly from him. Here, there's just as direct a correlation between the tariff policy and the increase in prices that will result. Amazon, as you say, would have the right to make that clear. There's nothing wrong with that. I know it annoys Karoline Leavitt, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, it's not unpatriotic to be mad about big government causing higher prices. That's like my entire ideology, is opposing government efforts to make things more expensive. You know, I tweeted this earlier today, but partisanship just so rots people's brains.
Yeah.
If Obama had some new clean green energy initiative tax carbon system that was raising the cost of certain goods or oil prices, and people said, businesses said, this is the Obama tax, this portion of the price tag is the Obama tax. Republicans and conservatives and conservative media would be calling attention to it.
And delighted with it.
Cheering for them publicizing the negative impacts of Obama's policies. I'm not saying this because I'm like anti-Trump. I want Trump to succeed. And one way in which he would succeed is by not having policies that harm the economy and that make things more expensive. The American people, how many times do they have to signal to their elected, to the people in charge, to the government, we just want things run normally, and we want the economy good, and we don't want everything to cost way too much, especially for artificial, manipulated government reasons. Can we just please be normal? And then they go, well, the Democrats aren't going to give us that. They're promising all this stuff that's bad. Okay, Republicans get a shot. Republicans wreck it immediately. Okay, Democrats are actually the normal ones. Going back to Democrats. Democrats wreck it again. We go back to Republicans. This is our fate for all time.
Well, it may be our fate, but I do think that the hypothetical you raised is really interesting in terms of the broader picture. Your hypothetical about the Obama tax. Had that happened, that would be a very direct and inarguable connection between a policy and prices going up. Now, Leavitt's argument about inflation isn't that, because yes, there is certain legislation that Biden passed that you could certainly argue contributed to inflation. You could also argue...
In fact, I would argue the one that does that is the one called the Inflation Reduction Act.
maybe so, and that's an argument to be made. But there is also the fact that supply chains were messed up following the pandemic. There are various other arguments you can make about the multifaceted causes of an inflation rise in the middle of Biden's term. That is different. And lots of past presidents have been different from this one, where for no real emergency reason, Trump decided to do the tariffs thing. And it is as clear as day that that was a cause and effect of the markets dwindling, of the bond market getting queasy, of all this cascade of effects. That's why I don't think Leavitt's comparison with inflation really works. Here, Amazon was reported, perhaps incorrectly, but was reported to be saying, well, look, here's a policy that went on, here's the price increase that results.
Yeah, on inflation, I would say the causes of inflation are somewhat multifaceted. I think I would argue the two big contributors to inflation, in addition to just the supply chain disruptions of COVID, are excessive government spending and excessive and the printing of money, devaluing the currency over time. That's something.
Which is the Fed rather than Biden, to be fair.
Which is the Fed, to be fair. I think we keep saying no reason to do this. I mean, the Trump people, in fairness to them, would say they give three different reasons. They say national security concerns. We cannot be reliant on China. That is the one that probably has the greatest degree of plausibility. Now, of course, the tariffs were not narrowly directed at China. Then the second was, well, we actually don't like tariffs. We're trying to show other countries how bad they are and get them to get rid of them. If what comes of this is 6 months from now, there are lower barriers to trade with the rest of the country, again, I will consider the policy a success and say that the temporary headache and threat was worth it if it's lowered the trade barriers everywhere else. Then the third, the argument that doesn't make any sense, but some people in the Trump administration do want to do it, is they want lasting tariffs in order to make more manufacturing occur in the U.S., even if it does raise the price. I mean, it has to raise the price of goods coming into the country in order to facilitate that. So that's something they're consciously choosing. So those are the three arguments, and it's kind of pick who do you think is most sway or say over Trump, or what the argument is, and thus how long lasting they would be.
Yeah, it is, but the point is that those arguments, at least the third one, is in conflict with the other arguments you cited, because the third one demands not only the rising of prices, but the maintenance of high tariffs on other importing nations over a long period of time, because self-evidently, if you jack up tariffs on Cambodia today, people are not going to just build a factory tomorrow in Ohio. That's not exactly how it works, and it takes time for that to take effect. So the folly of the policy was, to my mind, revealed by the contradictory rationalizations for it.
Well, that does it for us today on Rising. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any of our content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts. See you later.